afternoon, students. Welcome to the presentation for Social Science 2 for the year 2019. Okay, so I hope most of you, or at least some of you, have completed your assignment that was due on 15 January 2019. So from here, actually, this presentation is just to prepare you for the upcoming exam, which is going to be somewhere in April, but also another one in August, and then supplementary examination. So we have only one single presentation for all three examinations that you'll be writing. I mean, one of those three, because you'll be writing, I mean, one or two of those. My name is Benjamin Nathaniel, and I'm the tutor for this Social Science 2. Just from the beginning, make sure that you're sitting for the right course, and just to put everything into perspective, the module that you are registered for is Social Science 2, which is part of the course on Bachelor of Education Senior Primary. So the credits and the subject credits, and that's the credit for the whole course, which is 547. So you are sharing that Social Science 2 with all other social sciences and other modules that I'm not taking, but at least I'm taking you through Social Science 2, and also other modules that are related to social science that are so close, Social Science 1 and Social Science 3. The module has 14 credits, which means that 140 national hours, so you have 10 hours for every credit. That's just some formalities. The offering mode is distance. So the assignment that you've just written, if you've written or submitted one, is out of 130. So you're required to pass 50 with 50%, and then you are now going to write an exam also out of 130, of which you're also required to get 50%. Now the two 50% will now weigh differently. That 60% should be from the exam and 40% from the CA. That's really just because exam normally is really the real test, and the exam, I mean the assignment, sometimes you have to consult other people and other, even if it's not supposed to be advised, you're supposed to be doing most of this work by yourself. Okay. Excuse me. I normally would like always to put this module into perspective on how, when we talk about social sciences, into the whole education system. You have natural sciences, and you have other like economics, but the social sciences as a whole, how does it fit in the whole national education system? So we start thinking about all the areas of which social sciences plays a role, because this course is upper primary, which it means that it's from grade 5 to 7. So the students from this who are attending this course, your learners, we would say they have already gone through the lower primary, which is 1 to 4, and pre-primary, and all those other small stages. So we are preparing them basically for the senior, I mean for the senior primary and junior secondary. So we start talking about what are the issues that you should be thinking about, even just on your first day of teaching this course, as you teach your students. Because now the translation here is that the course you are being taught, some of you are already teachers, some are still learning to become teachers. So what are the issues that you should be thinking as we think about social sciences? So we think of issues like how, what poverty has come about. So you see, everything on this slide is not necessarily exhaustive. This is just some of the things that you should be. I can go through two or three, or you look at the environment, how does population growth um, influence the way we deal with the environment, or the impact we have on the environment, the pollution we generate, but also the pollution that is generated elsewhere. How does that affect us? Because we share this whole environment. We say it's we share the environment with other people, so sources of pollution from this side do not necessarily affect us only. And that we're going to talk about local pollution and global pollution later, but this is just to put everything into perspective. uh, Issues of refugee, for example, if we have a problem in a neighboring country, let me say in Angola, the civil war in Angola, or the civil war in or like this instability as it currently happening in Zimbabwe, how do we the influx of people into our country, which we have now, which also talk about migration, which also talk about how are the countries interdependent, because anything you do in this country will have a rippling effect in a neighboring country or in the world for that matter. So what's happening in North Africa, uh, what we call refugees. Now people are risking their lives trying to cross the Mediterranean into going into some European countries. So this is really what we're talking about, the social sciences. And in the US, teachers already, or potential teachers for this module, play a very important role in this cohesiveness of social beings. It's not to discredit other areas of like natural sciences and engineering and other things, but we cannot succeed by only focusing on one area. So this is the important area, because you are molding the learners to be able to understand, to share culture, to appreciate other people, that those who are from other cultural background, or other economical background, or share religious background with other people. So you are molding a student. So you should be able to instill these cultures or these values into your learners. So and for you to instill those values in your learners, that means that you must be able to master them at this level. Okay. um, Maybe not to spend so much time on this one. We are only saying that here the contact glasses, if you give this class or this presentation to you, it's not ready to say we are going to give you questions for the exam. So it's actually just to say what are the possible areas we should focus on. Uh, it's not necessary to say you will receive this question, this is how, but we're saying if something comes up of this nature, this is how you handle it and where to put more emphasis and other things. But even more important of this presentation, or of this engagement we have with you now, is basically to find or to create a link or relationship. Some of you who have already gone through other modules that maybe we have already known each other somehow, that's fine. But actually those who are just entering these modules or are coming from elsewhere, this is actually the platform where we can now start engaging. So I'll still visit the first slide toward the end of the presentation, just for you to get my contact and my email, my contact number and my email, both are contact information, just for us to keep engaging, so that we make this module a success. Okay, now here we focus on some of the areas. In social science one, I would agree that some of you have already taken it, is that we were focused more on the social, or the first 3 unit was focused on the assessment, the values and attitude, and the pedagogies and all the things on how do we type of questions. But at least in here we already start with the map work and general methodology in social sciences. So at that graphic that I show you, which was talking about the value of social sciences in the whole education system, there was something I was talking about how big is the earth, for example. So how big is the earth at this stage? Social science to focus more on the African sort of history or African space, although you are encouraged to learn the world map. The world issues are not very taken emphasized more in social science too, but of course you need to reach there, but it really focus more on Africa and SADC. So and that's how the map work comes in, because the student or the learner that you're going to teach, and yourself for that matter, need to know how big relatively is Namibia, for example, to SADC country. If we say we have 10 million, for example, hectares of people, I mean hectares is the area of SADC. How do we compare that to the area of Namibia? So these are just some comparisons to make sure. In terms of population also, if we say SADC population is that should be now, if you put population for South Africa and Namibia and all 14 countries that are in SADC, how many we're probably going to reach a population which is upwards of 300,000 million people, or 300 million people. So how do we understand this to contextualize it into the whole African population, for example, which is a little bit over over 1.2 billion. So this comparison to understand what is going out there is what comes in. But now the map work itself is really now sometimes, because later in this module you'll be able to calculate population by area, or to be able to compare area of a region, certain region like a regional boundary in Namibia as opposed to other regions or the country. So what are the components that you should be very focused on when you're looking at the map? So this is, we will zoom in the following slides, but this is just to put it from the outset what you expect on. So we just spoke about the map of the map now, the map of Africa. So that's, you can see Namibia within that map there. Here, so okay, SADC really goes up to around here, including DRC, and then so and Malawi and all these countries here, 14 countries, so Southern African countries. So if one have to ask you to label all those countries that are in SADC, which you should know by this time or at this stage. But obviously, as we mark, we also find some people confusing or cannot at least label all the countries. But it's even the following that to follow now here, that if I have to ask you, for example, how because now later you will find two maps, one map for SADC, I mean for Africa, another map for SADC. But then this map, they will fit on one paper, probably occupying one space, meaning that one was reduced more than the other. So how can we compare the scale of that map and so forth? So, and that's why I have to emphasize here on the calculation of map scales. There are other components of maps, which include the legends, the direction, the tables, if you have to put in the table, but the scale comes up because it's really where most students start to struggle. Other things they can easily put them on, but here the slide is actually just to make sure that you know how to put the distance in the real world as opposed to the distance in the map. In most cases, the distance on the map you have to measure it yourself. Distance in the real world, because everybody must use the same. The examination or the question paper will present it that, okay, if the distance from point A to point B is given, it's 100 kilometers, use yours on your map, on your answer sheet, and measure that same distance and be able to compare the two and give that how was that distance in reality was reduced to fit in the map. So the answer should, the last map should be, for example, 1 centimeter in the map represent 200 centimeter in reality, or 2000 centimeter in reality, and whatever the distance is, because if the distance, for example, it's a small town, then it means that you have a small, a large scale map to compare to. While if the distance is, for example, Africa, then you have a bigger number to compare to. So that's where the small scale and large scale comes in. So we are only saying that small scale objects appear smaller on the map. That means that they were reduced so much, so that you have a bigger number that says that one is, for example, to 1 million. So that's what brings, if I have Africa, for example, and I bring Africa to fit in this or on this paper, that means that I have very reduced, because Africa in reality is very big, so I have very squeezed Africa so much that 1 centimeter in this probably is equal to 10 million. How many is this? 10. Yes, that's 10 million. 10 million centimeter on the ground. So 1 centimeter here probably refer to or equals to 10 million centimeter on the ground. So this is a small scale map. But if I have to take your region, this is Namibia, for example, let me say you are in Karas. I'll take this region here, and then I put it on this map. Now this is Karas down here. So that means that because Karas in reality was not already too big, so squeezing it into this map was not did not require scaling down so much. So maybe it was 1 centimeter in this is centimeter, right? It's probably only 100,000 centimeter on the ground. So this is how they and now this become a large scale map because the object appear larger, and it become a small scale map because the object appears smaller than the reality. So if I have to bring the building or something else, the same apply. So the building, for example, if I have to take a building somewhere and I have to put a scale, maybe it will just be 1 centimeter to 100 centimeter or 1000 centimeter in reality. So that's the whole idea regarding this. And just for your information, I always, because as you divide and all that, you probably have to come to a point where you have to use decimal places. So it's always nice to use two numbers after the decimal, after the decimal, or after the point. So sometimes you have a number that maybe 0.0003, then it means that you only consider this one. So this one did not go, so 0.00 is fine. But maybe if this number is 6, then of course you have to, then of course you have to round it up to the next one. That is just some alteration if you can look at it. But the issues about calculating map scale, we should really start engaging more. There's more slides to come. I cannot spend the whole 20 minutes on this one because we have a limited time. Now, analysis of futures in climate and vegetation population distribution in Africa. That's what I just referred to earlier on. You must be able to use pattern in a certain landscape or like in a continent, and be able, like if you have a population that's concentrated to some pattern that you see in a map, you must be able to see that, okay, this is a river. This population is alongside a river, because you will come across. I'll put this one here. Let me say this is Namibia, or this is Namibia, and you have this is probably like Kavango River passing here. Maybe this is Zambezi River passing somewhere here. And maybe this Orange River. You have the Kunene River. You have maybe some features like here, like the Toshapan here. So if I put a label A here and I put a label B here, which is the Namibia set, and I say, why is the population concentrated here? So those are the physical features, because maps and rivers and mountains and rivers, mountains, some vegetation classes that you can put that are deduced from physical features. You should not comment on economics or war, or, because of these things you cannot see them in a map. So I put a point here next to some feature that you'll be able to identify on a map, maybe some elevation, whatever. So we must be able to point B, do not have a higher population or population density because it's part of the desert, or it's the rainfall and all these things. But the comments on migration or economics are not part of that map, right? So the population of Namibia, Africa, and the population and density, that's actually what I'm referring to. But also we must be able to refer the climatic regions or climatic climatic zones to the population, because if, for example, I put a point here and there are rainfall or the ISO heights, one must be able to say that, okay, this area receive rainfall above 500 millimeter, for example, and that's why you have more people staying there. But if that's the whole part of being able to relate physical features to the population distribution or density. Okay. The other part that you should be focused on, or what I picked out that I want to emphasize on, is the methods of determining direction. You have a lot of methods, or you can use the watch method, or the compass, the shadows. You have a lot. They are all listed. I think there are up to 11 that are all listed in the sun's angle, the moon's star. They are all listed in your study guide. But the point, listing them is not really the big point. You must be able to know them, because the question that is important is, how do you apply this method? If you say, how do you use the sun's angle to determine direction, or the shadows of trees and all those things, or the compass or the watch, how do you use that to determine the direction? It's not only about listing the methods, but actually what you should be able to emphasize on, how can you use one of those methods in a given, or actually 2 or 3 of those methods given a specific situation. Right. Seasons are very, very important. Right now we are approaching, we are in summer now, approaching out moon. So how does season, okay, how does it impact the plants and animal? So this is really just to put everything into perspective. Like if it's summer now, there are summer in the northern. I mean, if for example it's summer in the northern hemisphere and it's winter in the southern hemisphere, how do you relate the two conditions in terms of vegetation and in terms of animal movements, like migratory species of fish that adapt only to some sort of temperature, species of bird that can only tolerate weather conditions or temperatures of certain range. So how do you link the occurrence season to the impact on the overall biosphere? But also, how do you present this in a form of lesson? Or how do you come up with a lesson plan to present the issue of seasons to your class? That is just a small illustration to see that the Earth, of course, has it's on its axis. It have some 23.5 degree. So that's you need to illustrate. That's why I put the last bullet there, that illustrations are very important when you are presenting when you are answering a question about season and how they occur. Maybe you would not be able to illustrate the movement of animals, but if you can also do that. But actually, the what are the season and how they occur, the illustration will matter most in that area. Yeah. As we move toward the last units, here the history part, you will see focus in Namibia, but also a little bit of Southern Africa history. Uh, in most cases, here we just want to focus on the essay because most of history questions, you have those long answer sort of questions where you will need to sort of discuss, and really a part of an essay is also, essays really fall into discussions. So you will need to be able to understand how to put that's just one of the possible questions that I put there, that if we have to say discuss or write an essay about the Namibia German occupation from 1914 to independence. So that means having from 1914, when the German was really the real occupant, until when it comes to South Africa, and then until 1990 when we got our independence. But the title, always know that there is always 2 marks given or dedicated to writing a right title. So just starting without a title, that's already losing you 2 marks. And the easy thing that is I have to point here is that when you're writing a title, it's already given to you. It's just writing it. So because in all the essay question, the title will already be either straight away or deducible so easily. Just say you just need to put it down. You already have your 2 marks, and then you now go into an introduction where you are actually going to say to provide a little bit of overview, and then write what are you going to what are you going to write in your essay, right? And then once you have written your essay, you will now come and say, okay, for whatever you said you are going to write in an essay, you now unpack it, like into 2 to 3 paragraphs, maybe to 4 paragraphs. I recommended 4 here, and then you conclude about what you have said, right? So that's the whole format of sort of a discussion question or an essay question, and that's just to emphasize on the facts. So please try always to present facts than just writing hanging statements that do not have any factuality or within them. Right. Okay, that's another part of history, which is in slavery. Now that's beyond the African history. I mean, Namibian history. So, like I said, there is no much word history in social science too, but at least also be able to have quite an overview of what the word history is all about, all the way from, especially in history in social science too. It's always good to know from World War One, 1914 to World War Two, 1945, until the period of the Cold War, just to have that sort of overview. Periods before that will be mostly handled in social science 6, which we will reach later, I think in your 3rd year, where we will talk about even before the First World War, like 1800, 1600 years. Right. The part of democracy in Namibia, you'll be able to be given a question which will test you to see if you understand the current contemporary issues regarding democracy. And this is normally a point where you are given a situation, and then you have to go to either go for it or against it. Say, is that a democracy? It's not a right or wrong question. It's actually how you present your arguments. This is the year of elections, for example. You need to be able to give some examples that regarding the main point is be able to put, because the whole issue of history is for you to be able to understand how the past events are shaping our current events, and how possible or what are the chances that it will influence or it will chart the future in a certain direction. So that's why if you are given a scenario, you'll be able to put it into context and that's the whole essence of history. Right. As we conclude now, okay, that's the part of geography. I think the slide it belongs to the other part, so we don't have to 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 focus more on these slides. It's actually just the vegetation and the influence. You've seen those slides already, but now this is where the important parts comes in. The economic activities. We have the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, the quaternary, but also as we talk about economic activities, um, especially for now, the questions will be more on. Namibia have entered what you call a recession, which is even now some economists are calling it a depression, because once you have entered into 10 consecutive economic contractions, it's actually qualified as a depression. So all these contemporary issues we are going through, you must be able to answer. When you answer a question and you put these things into perspective, then you'll be able to aid to gain more marks. Okay, the issues of HIV and AIDS, these are the 2-3 final module, final chapters of your study guide. You just really the focus more is on the myths and the truth, and how are you able to teach this concept or this study or or this topic to your student. And this is really sort of a role play, an illustration sort of topic, because this is an active or something that you need to be actively engaged with the students and or with your learners, and also learners interacting. So it's not like just a normal class discussion, or you want to give a project for people to go do it. It's always nice to do it with you have to refer to your social science one, the methods of presenting social sciences, whether which one is applicable here, or the project, the class discussion, the question and answer, this type of thing. But of course, this role play will be when you asked about how can you go around teaching the students or around the myths and truth of HIV. Is normally you have a group of students who are opposing it, or who are talking about the myths, and you have a group of students who are talking about the truth, and then or you have a sort of a learner who's acting is like he's being victimized, and then another person who is acting like, no, don't do that. So this is how you present social as a theme on HIV and AIDS. But as long as you can also justify or any other approach, you will not obviously get 0. But if you have something that you cannot defend, that's when things don't work well. Right. We come to the end of our presentation. I go back to the first slide again, even if it's not. Let me just put it on. Just for your own information, that my cell phone number is there. It's available all the time, especially after 5, and also in weekends. So we can always you can also give me a call, and then we will see if there is anything that we need to clarify. Do not try to call all of you toward toward April when the exam is coming. Just like I've seen students, when the assignment is due next week is when they all call. Sometimes the time will not be there, so always study to do things a bit earlier, so that when we can also have enough engagement and follow-ups and stuff. Good luck for the rest of the year, and please don't hesitate to contact me for any question. Thank you.